Hello, this is Hillary and Clinton, and welcome to Black Atlantic, a podcast and media channel bringing East Coast voices to the world. We finally get to do the Hillary Clinton bit.
This week, we'll be interviewing Robin Gessy about being a PEI photographer and futures creator at Canon.
Our podcast is weekly with guests, topics, and you can find us online by searching Black Atlantic on most social media platforms, as well as on our website, blackatlantic.ca. How are you today, Clinton?
I'm going to skip that this week. I'm gonna pass on the how I am today and how I am this week.
You can pass.
I use my first pass of our 26th episode.
Yeah. You can have as many passes as you want because we make the show.
I'm
going to say I'm swampy. It's hot, but I won a contest today, which is why we were slightly delayed, because I won a contest, but from Smirnoff, and I'm sober. But it's a bunch of merch with like cherries on it, and it's very cute. And so you'll see me influencer marketing alcohol, even though she doesn't drink. So anyway, I liked the influencer who did the contest, and it's a designer that I like. But I digress. Speaking of people that we like, much more importantly, our guest, Robin. I heard of you, Robin. How are you today, by the way?
I'm doing good. Good. I have the AC on, so everything is feeling very nice right now.
Yes, as I said before we started, I'm boiling meat and sweaty, but jealous of you. I originally heard of you because of the CBC article about the Canon, the creators, the futures creator thing that was going on. And then I saw during Black History Month that you had sort of participated with Bianca Garcia, who's been a guest of ours in the Black Culture Society of PEI, and you were connected with a bunch of people that we were connected with. And we've tried several times to have you on, but we're all very, very busy. But I'm super excited that we finally get to speak to you today, because I don't know any other Black PEI photographers, and so I'm really excited to talk to you about that. But I'll dial it back first. If you want to tell us about like where you were born and raised, if you were born on the island or if you immigrated to PEI, and some of the background about where your parents are from.
Sure. First of all, it's a big pleasure to get a chance to be on this podcast. Very honored, honestly. But to get straight to the questions, I'm not born in Canada. I'm an immigrant. I was born in Rwanda. I think most people, at least we refer it to the heart of Africa, because it's literally right in the middle. And I call it the country of 1,000 hills, because it literally has 1,000 hills. They're all gorgeous. So yeah, I'm from Rwanda. Same thing as my parents. My parents are all born from Rwanda as well. They were born way before the whole genocide happened in Rwanda and all that. So they had a fair share of that. But me, I was born after that. So I got to see kind of like Rwanda trying to recover and all that. And I got to witness Rwanda's art scene kind of like grow and all that stuff. So then I moved to Canada. That was 2018-ish. And yeah, it's been a fun ride so far.
Clinton, you're muted. And I also have a question after, but I'll let you go first.
Yes.
Oh, go ahead, Hillary.
I just wanted to ask, because I don't know that in the podcast we did before this one, or even this one, that we've ever spoken to anyone from Rwanda or with like a Rwandan descent. And I'm curious, the arts and culture scene that you mentioned, since you like immigrated more recently, if you could compare it to Canada or and what that's like, or what Rwanda's like at all. I'm sorry that I know solely. So I unfortunately, being whitewashed, know little about Africa except for being Senegalese. So I would love to hear a little bit more about that, if you want to talk about it.
Yeah, it's one thing that you say Senegalese, that some of my family members are also Senegalese. So we get to speak a lot of French. Je parle beaucoup de français. So I get to speak, So I grew up, so Rwanda, if I had to describe Rwanda to anybody who doesn't know Rwanda really, it's people who love cows, people who love milk, people who love eggs, people who like all about like real culture things. There always is a piece of culture whenever you see Rwandans gathered in one place. For example, if you look at Rwandans who live in Canada, they always know each other. They always keep tabs on each other. They always try to uplift each other and stuff like that. So it's like, that's a big characteristic of Rwandans. They're always very joyous and they always gather around all together. So which makes it like, a huge kind of like community everywhere I go. I know if I find Rwandans, I'm very welcomed already. So yeah, so the culture and art scene that I was talking about it's more of like after the genocide had happened in Rwanda, there wasn't really a lot of, oh, I want to be a photographer for me to make a living. I want to be a musician. I want to be a singer or a painter or something like that. It's not something that was really encouraged, not because it was not good or that people didn't believe in it, but mostly because it was not feasible due to the economic status that the country was going in after the whole genocide thing happened and Rwanda trying to recover and all that. So it's only recently that way before I got the chance to come here, I was starting to see it kind of like grow a little bit steadily. But then now that I'm here, I was looking back on it and chatting with a lot of friends who are in there, and I was just amazed. There's so many people who are photographers, directors, who are musicians full time, and they are able to make a living from that. So that's something that I say that they've started to catch up on compared to Canada. Now everybody's able to make a living doing what they love.
That's amazing. I'm gonna double check. Clinton, are you still there? Nope. Okay, that's fine. I can run this I can run the show by myself. I'm kidding. But I will say, I think it's funny that you then immigrated to PEI, the land of cows ice cream. And the first thing that you said is, if you like cows, which is funny and not what I would have expected at all. So when you ended up immigrating to PEI in 2018, I'm curious, I don't know if you mentioned, did you go by yourself, and why of all of the Canadian provinces, PEI?
When I immigrated at first, I moved to Montreal because again, I speak French, and anywhere where people speak French, I feel very comfortable and I'm able to just like chat with anybody. So I was living in Montreal, a specific place called Laval. And I got a chance to kind of like meet a huge community of people there. And the only reason why I chose PEI after living in Montreal and Laval was mostly for studies. It was way more cheaper, way more affordable in terms of like being able to pay the school fees, which for international students at that time was kind of like something crazy because you get that crazy student international fee that is always a lot. So yeah, compared to other places, I had admissions at Concordia, but then I remember looking at their prices, I was like, hell no, I'm not doing this. So moved to PEI, and gladly there was already a Rwandan community here, so it made it super easy.
That's amazing. I did not know that there was a Rwandan community there in PEI. Is it big, or is it just small but powerful and mighty?
No, it's compared to like a Nigerian community or a Bahamian community, we're not that big. But I think it's a good amount if you wanted to make something happen. We would be able to make something happen, really. So I'd say probably like close to 60 to 100 maybe.
Oh, not bad.
It's all right.
I mean, if you were to have asked me when I was going to like University de Moncton, the Senegalese population of the city, I would have had no answer and no frame of reference. I was like, no, I think I'm alone. So, and I definitely was not. So that does seem like a decent amount, and more. I still think of the island, unfortunately, often as white, and so it's nice to hear, that's not the case, and I'm generalizing, and that there is a Rwandan community there. That's great. So what has growing up in PEI been, or the immigration to PEI from Montreal been like? Is it how I just described it, sort of white, or like was the diversity surprising to you? What's that experience been?
I think it was much more like a huge change of scene, because it was going from a city that was so fast paced to a city that takes its time with everything. So PI is much more slow paced. Like you say, it's much more older white people who live here and all that. And when I got here, at that time, there wasn't a lot of Black, communities who are actively trying to pursue a lot of huge things. There was a nice group that was, at least I got the chance to meet. I'm not sure if you guys probably already know him. He runs the Atlantic Student Development Alliance. His name is Daniel Ikechukwu. Yeah, he's the first person who welcomed me on the island in terms of like trying to integrate me and trying to show me all the other kind of like things that happen on the island. And one thing that I had noticed immediately was just like, people were just in their own little groups. People were like, okay, cool, we're Rwandans, we're just going to hang around Rwandans. Or we're Nigerians, just going to hang around Nigerians, Bahamians around Bahamians, white people on their own. So nothing was being done as a community, really. But then I've seen a huge shift from back then to now, where everything is really together. So it's like, there's no more that thing of like, oh yeah, I can't go there because I'm assuming that it's a specific group that's, just gonna be there or enjoy that. But nowadays it's just like everybody oversees that and just has fun.
That's really good. I'm glad. I know that in comparison's sake, it felt to me growing up that New Brunswick didn't really have that. And of course, now that I'm gone, there does seem to be a lot. Now that I'm in Toronto and doing this.
Now they're like, okay, we might as well.
Yeah. We got rid of her. Let's make some moves.
Let's do some changes over here.
Of course. So now there definitely seems to be, like there's the New Brunswick, like a Black Artists Alliance and all these different things that have come together. But I have heard of like BIPOC Usher and Bianca's work with the Black Collective Media. And then, like I mentioned before, the Black Culture Society. So it does seem like there's definitely a lot more going on. Hi, Clinton.
Hello.
Welcome
Am
back.
I back? Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Yeah. Amazing.
I was just going to ask a question for context, as you mentioned. So you came to Canada in 2018. How did you get to PEI, like just right before the pandemic then?
Yes, I did.
So sorry.
Yeah, I got to PEI right before the pandemic. But actually, I'm kind of glad I did a little bit, because the way I was seeing all these restrictions being put on Montreal or any other of these big cities compared to PEI were the last people to ever get COVID. And our restrictions, even though they seemed strict, they were not really that strict compared to the other provinces. So I'm always glad to get a chance to be here where it was like minimal exposure.
Yes, be glad. I'm literally in the process of booking my 4th booster right now because I live in Hell on Earth, also known as Toronto, but I don't want to leave. That's fair. Clinton, do you remember what you wanted to ask back when we were talking about Rwanda? Because I'd like you to have your moment.
My moment. Yeah, I'm so sorry about that, by the way. This hasn't happened on my computer in months.
Yep.
But I gotta get back. I can't remember.
That's okay. Well,
I can't remember. It'll come back to me.
We've covered a lot of ground. But
where are we? Yeah.
Where we're at now
obviously.
in Robin's life would be schooling. So you mentioned that you switched from Montreal to PEI for school. Did you initially go to school for photography, and was that always like the goal in mind and your plan and your vision, or did you do something else and then completely switch? Or was it that arts influence of Canada that you're like, I gotta take pictures of these cows? Like what was the education?
It was, I think, in terms of what you just asked, it was just like uphill, downhill type of like journey. So I remember when I got here, like any typical person, I chose the safest thing to study because I was like, cool, I think I'm capable of making a living out of this. So let me just study this just in case as a plan B. And that was business administration. So that was the easiest and safest thing for me to study at that time. And I was like, cool, I'm about to study this. I tried to study it in Montreal, but then like I told you, I realized that the pricing of the universities there are crazy. So that's when I moved to PEI. And that's when I started to study business administration. And I hated it. With all my heart, I hated it so much. And it was mostly because I'm always fine with mathematical stuff, anything that requires me to kind of like calculate things. But anything that requires me to kind of like, memorize a lot of things. I'm like, no. Anything that's too much words, I'm like, no. I sign out. So I remember taking an economics class that was at 8 a.m. and I was sitting at the front row. And the class, I think, finished at 12. And I remember looking at all the students. We were all looking at each other. We all knew we didn't understand anything. That's when it clicked for me. I was like, okay, I got to switch up. I still have time. I can go do something I actually like. And during that whole time, I was debating my whole, little existential crisis of like, what am I supposed to do? What's my role here on earth? What am I trying to, bring forth? What can I provide to people and stuff like that? And that's when I was like, okay, cool. I love telling stories. But then I went at it backwards a little bit. That's when I was still like, okay, let me do journalism because I love doing journalism. And I studied journalism. I was actually loving it. But then it also clicked again a little bit later that I was like, okay, this is not what I really want to do. I know I have a talent, so I might as well, rather than me paying all this money to a degree that I'll never get to use, I might as well just invest it in something that is actually productive. So that's when I switched to studying film. So that's when I started to take classes on like photography and all that. Even though I already knew a lot of things about photography back then, I still was like, okay, cool. It's not bad to invest in like a formal kind of like studies type of like certificate or degree or something. That's when I got that. And here we are now.
Wow. That's
it's a lot of up and downs of me double thinking everything the moment I take a decision.
Well, that's okay. I don't know if it's up or downs as opposed to like around and arounds. Like it seems like you went from, in a good way, like you went from major to major and knew soon enough that something wasn't for you instead of, sticking it through to the end unhappily. And you found what it sounds to be your true passion, or a big passion of yours, at least, if not your biggest. Is that not correct? I mean, that's a great story. Really... Like you followed your heart, and when you found what was right for you, you stuck to it.
No, that's very true.
Can I just say that I changed programs 5 times and then I ended up doing journalism, but I never, like my piece of paper up there, it's a degree in English from Université de Moncton. Like my education's a joke. I just wanted to commiserate that. I was like, I have no idea what I'm doing here, but I'm going to leave with the piece of paper and we'll see if I make money. So I feel that. I also had that same feeling in a statistics class of like, what am I learning? And how is this going to help me later? So I get you. Anyway, that's enough from me.
It mattered for me to fully be true to myself and understand what I'm trying to pursue, because at this time I wasn't making enough money for me to pay my own tuition. So it was definitely my parents' money. So I always had this thing in my head of like, I don't want to make them pay for something that's not going to pay back. So that was always my third part. And I don't want to waste this money. I don't want to waste this money anyway. Because I'm like, it's not everybody who gets a chance to be here and I get to be here. So I have to at least maximize it a little bit and do something I actually love, rather than lie to myself and kind of like promise my parents something I'm not going to deliver. So yeah.
I imagine they'd be very proud to hear you say that.
Oh no, they are. They're like, okay, cool. Finally, now that I've finished school, it's been a moment. But then they're always kind of like grateful that I took that route. I understand when, like, we have, at least for me, African parents, they're very, I wouldn't say very controlling, but they always want you to study specific things. But it's out of a place of concern mostly. It's out of a place of looking out for you and being like, okay, cool, you can make it in this industry. That's why I want you to be a doctor or like an engineer and all that stuff. So both my parents have doctorates. So I'm like, okay, they already expected a lot from us. But the funny thing is other kids went in the arts. So it was just very funny. So
it sounds like it's working out well.
Surviving so far.
Have your parents been over here?
No, not yet. My mom is probably coming here in October, and my dad is not a big travel person. So, but if I convince him, he's gonna probably stop by here as well.
For sure. I was
Yeah.
going to ask what they thought of PEI and Canada and the East Coast. Have you been back to Rwanda since?
No, not yet. Um,
Especially with
thing is,
COVID. Yeah,
yeah, especially with COVID. And when I left Rwanda, I didn't know I was going to be a photographer at all. I didn't
for
know
sure.
anything about my talent. I didn't know anything. It's only when I get here that I started to kind of like build that muscle and know kind of like what I love, kind of stories I want to tell. So I always tell people that everything I'm working on here, everything I'm doing up here, is kind of like preparing me for the day I go back to Rwanda, because I'm going to be able to tell much more better stories of the whole community.
And
So it's going to be, yeah.
and that's my next question. So when you do go back to Rwanda, what kind of stories do you think you will tell? What do you think you'll want to show the world about Rwanda or express?
I think it's always going to be, see, when I think about it now, it was different when I thought about it back then, because back then I would have told you, oh, I'm just going to, interview people who have survived the genocide and stuff like that. Because that's the easiest thing to do. And honestly, that's the stories that most people have never heard of, mostly, because they don't really know much about the whole thing. But I feel like there's much more deeper, much more a bigger kind of like spectrum of people who are doing that. There's people who are into the fashion industry, there's people who are in the music industry, painting, cultural painting. There's people who are making their livings in ways you would never understand, especially when you go out of the city and go into like what people here would call like the trenches or like the villages, where it's like a little bit rough to make a living. So there's people who have so many different things that they can actually showcase. That's what I would love to document. And I have this kind of like, not really an obsession, but I love hearing old people speak, especially when they're telling you like tales, when they're telling you like, oh, their life was back then, the kind of hardships they went through, especially when you can see it in their eyes. There's people who look at you and you're like, yeah, this person went through life. So that's the kind of things I'd love to kind of like document a little bit when I get the chance to be there.
That's really interesting. So, like the real people of Rwanda and their lives, and sort of the history told through the elders or the seniors that live there.
100%.
Cool. How about, can you tell us about being a futures creator at Canon? What that entails, how the partnership came to be? We're super curious about that.
I think this would probably go way back. I'm going to make it fast, but I want to tell it to you in a way
that you can understand. It's okay. Take your time.
How it all came to be. So I remember when I got a PEI, I started working at a call center job, and to make, I have to pay rent and all that kind of stuff. And at that time, I saved up my first paycheck to buy my first camera, and that was a Canon Rebel T6. So that was my first camera. And I remember that month, I was like, what am I doing? Why am I buying this camera? But then I was like, cool, let me just, and at that time it kind of like was very vivid in my head that this is what I was supposed to kind of like pursue and at least try and learn. So got the camera, started shooting. It was the winter. It was the worst winter ever, because I was still trying to get adapted to the East Coast winter here, because it was very different. And then from there, working at a call center job, I remember one day I was sitting with one of my friends. Her name is Celine. And we were just chatting. My shift was like 4 p.m. to midnight. So around like 11 p.m., it was normally very slow. There was nobody calling in and stuff. So we get a chance to chit chat with the coworkers and stuff. And I remember I told her that one day I'm going to work with Canon. And at that time, I was like, what? I was like a small beginner. I probably didn't know how to take a picture straight or even how to edit it properly. But then I remember she kind of encouraged me, but almost laughed a little bit. But it was more of like an encouragement type of thing. And I was like, I took it nicely. I almost took it like a child. I was like, cool, we'll see. But it was friendly, she's one of my best friends. So I'm like, it's going to be easy. And fast forward to 2020. 2020, around July-ish, I remember one day I was just, coming back from a shower. I opened my phone. A notification came through. It was like, Canon Canada mentioned you in a post. And I was like, wait, that's weird. I opened it and they did like an artist highlight of some artists they tried to highlight on their socials. And I remember seeing a picture of me there and I lost it. I was so happy. I was like, it wasn't like a direct form of like communication or like any sort of partnership, but it was like them highlighting an artist that they actually liked. And I was just baffled because I was like, yeah, I was still in that process of like thinking that, oh, my work is probably not that good and stuff like that. So they highlighted me with a couple other friends of mine who are actually surprisingly, one of them is also a Canon ambassador now. So it's just like, it was such a beautiful kind of like road from there. So that was 2020. Then fast forward, I remember seeing this all kind of futures thing and, inquired about it, kind of got in touch with them. And when I got the chance to be part of the kind of futures, it all came like full circle where it's like that friend called me. She was like, do you remember a conversation we had back in 2019 when we were sitting in this call center? And I was like, oh, it clicked because I had forgot about it. It was no longer even in my kind of like thought pattern. And I would pray every night and be like, okay, I'm going to put in the work. But God, I want you to open some doors in the back seats so that this can happen. So I was like still very hopeful that it was going to happen. So at that time, when she told me, it clicked in my head that this is something that I'm meant to pursue and that's meant to be. So that was 2021. That's when I got the chance to travel to Bath and meet a lot of Canon executives or Canon creators, ambassadors. And for a full year, well, I've been having, a chance to meet and chat with them on a regular basis, doing workshops with them and all that, building a relationship really. So yeah, that's the whole story behind the kind of futures. If you want me to go deeper on what kind of futures is, I can do that. But I just wanted to give you a quick kind of like timeline of how it happened at least.
I think that's good. I mean, I think if people want to look up the Canon futures, that's something that they can do. But that's wild. I love hearing stories like that, like these stories of manifestations or prayer or intention or putting things out there to the universe. And then even if you forget about it, sometimes things still happen. So I don't know if you put the message to the back of your brain and it starts working on the solution on autopilot.
Probably, I don't know how it
literally
works.
God or the universe or the frequencies, they just put you on that pathway. But stories like that are beautiful. So that's great the way you got connected with that.
I got emotional.
Yeah, no, that's what I'm saying.
I mean, like, I don't know, when I hear people, like you said, that manifestation stuff, and when it comes through for people who I believe should be deserving, it just warms my heart. I think that's fabulous, and good on Canon for recognizing. But also, at that point, would you have been, like, it would have been what, almost a year since you would have bought the Rebel T6. So had you only been doing photography for a year? You mentioned when you went to school, you had prior photography knowledge, right?
Yeah.
So you had been working for a bit.
I think I've always had a camera in my hand since I was a kid, really. Like my mom always had some point and shoots, some of those little film cameras that she had. And I would always have like playing around with them as a kid. So I always had something on my eye as a kid. So even if it wasn't a camera, it would be a cell phone taking pictures and stuff like that. So I just didn't have the money for a camera. So that's what kind of like happened in 2019 or 2018-ish, end of 2018, start of 2019, when I got a chance to save up a little bit to get that first camera. It was now officially I had a camera, no longer kind of like shooting on my Samsung or like whatever phone I had at that time. And I remember even like with the phone, I would actually plan trips where I'm just shooting on my phone and people would not believe that this picture was taken on a phone. And when I was traveling from Montreal to PEI, it was a night flight. And I remember I took a picture with my phone through the window, and a lady who was sitting right next to me, she saw me take the picture and she saw me edit it and make it so good. And I think it's still one of the best pictures I took. But I looked and she was looking at the whole thing, and then she kind of like stopped for a minute and she looked at me. She's like, "How do you do that? Like, how do you take a random picture and just make it look this good?" And I think that also kind of like stuck in my head a little bit. That okay, somebody finds this good looking, so I might as well just keep pushing a little bit. So yeah, I had a little bit knowledge. So then mind you, when I got the camera, I full on went and I was shooting almost every day, until that time I was shooting 100%. So yeah, when that happened, it felt like a very big reward. So
That's amazing. And I wanted to ask too, since it's something that you like grew up with, and like you said, sort of almost born with the camera in your hands. Have you had various inspiration over the years, whether it's environmental or seen something that you've wanted to ever emulate, or things that you think are cool but you wanted to like twist? I always find that really interesting. My one brag, which is not a brag, when I studied fashion comms at Ryerson, I got to take a photography course, and I have a Nikon D5600, which was all of my money at the time.
We don't like Nikon on this side.
I bet. I've heard. Listen, when I worked at Shoppers and I bought a Nikon, I continuously was like, you can't buy a Canon. And so that's that I'm breaking my own personal beef.
You're not gonna get in trouble with Canon if someone says Nikon on the show,
right?
Yeah,
no
like contract. Like I'm playing.
We support Canon on this podcast. We do
sponsorship.
Wink, wink.
Yeah. Sorry, go on.
No, but I am curious. Yeah, what has your like artistic inspiration been over the years?
I think it always goes back to the culture, because in the running culture, the reason again we love cows, which is funny because I'm gonna tell you why it kind of makes sense a little bit, but the reason why we love cows is the beauty and also the majesty of them, especially when they have the big horns and stuff. So that's something that is tied with the running culture, especially the running culture dances with the ladies. When they dance, I'm not sure if you've ever seen any, but they tend to do their hand like this, which kind of like symbolizes the horns of the cows. And so then that dance there is kind of like very, you're gonna find it at weddings, at meetings, whenever like another president visits Rwanda, they're gonna have traditional dances, and they're gonna have that. They're gonna have some very rapid drummings. So every time as a kid, I would kind of like I would do something called taking photos with my eyes, or like brain pictures. So I just like picture a very beautiful scene where somebody's just beating the drums and there's like dust coming off the drum and kind of like in the air and stuff like that. And they have sweat. They're sweating so much. They're wearing like the traditional attires for like drummers. And I would just take that picture in my head, but I didn't know how to translate that picture to like something physical. But then I would always take a picture in my head. So that kind of grew on me, especially now that I've started to see like run-on paintings as well. And that kind of also created another layer. And when I moved here, I started to discover a lot of Black photographers, but most of them were not really based in Canada. Most of them are more like US-based photographers. And I started to kind of like study their work diligently, like very, very, almost, that thing where it's like there was a stage in studying that you try and copy the person you're studying from. I was really in that state. I was like, okay, I want to reproduce exactly this image, because I understand that if I'm able to reproduce this exact image, I'm able to reformulate it and kind of create something unique out of this same setup. So after probably a couple months ago, I got a chance to work with a brand called Profoto. It's a lighting brand. I think one of the best lighting brands out there. So I got it. They sent me some gear. They were like, "We want you to create an editorial piece out of this." And that's when I created a specific piece that was specifically for the running culture. So that's when you would find those positions of like having the hands up, doing the traditional dances, featuring traditional attires and stuff like that. And it's on my Instagram if you guys need to see it in any way to kind of like envision exactly what I mean. I could send it here right now if there is a way.
I think I should have the screen share
You
available
should be able to
to
share
everybody.
screen. Yeah.
Or here,
Oh shit!
I can click on it and do it too.
Yeah, it's multiple different posts, but
is it on?
Let me see.
Instagram or the CBC article? Okay.
I got it. Oh, you got it. We've all got it.
Oh, sweet. We've all got
Perfect.
it. Yes. So, for example, like here, some of this is like some of the traditional session that we did. So I wanted to showcase how you can make beautiful images. So you see the way she's dancing. This is the traditional random way of dancing. And so out of this part, we took some of these pictures where it's like the same thing I was telling you of, like using the hands to showcase the inyambo, which is the cow's name in Kinyarwanda. So kind of like showcasing that random beauty and showcasing the attires, the beauty of the attires, the little accessories, all those little things kind of make it look very gorgeous. So yeah, I wanted to just show you guys that for context so that you can kind of.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Oh, you really are on some frequency waves, because while you were speaking a few minutes ago, I just messaged to Hillary that I was going to share screen on your Instagram profile and ask you to show us some pictures.
Okay, that worked out perfectly.
I didn't know you were tapped into my computer, but that's
that worked out completely.
Feel free if you want to, like, while it's recording the whole screen, you can scroll if you want and continue to show some of your work. I'll add as a tidbit, as someone who's modeled for years and has rarely worked with Black photographers, though, like, no one depicts us the way we depict us, and those shots are stunning. Like, there's no offense to any white people listening, but they don't, like, it's the reflective, beautiful glow of melanin is not picked up when white people have the camera in the same way. Like, these women are just just beautiful. And
I think that's also something we talked about a little bit. I got a chance to do like a small, little interview with BCS, that's Black Cultural Society, here in PI, and we got a chance to talk about it, and I realized that I put in much more effort in learning how to color grade their skin than they would put in much more effort to learn how to color grade my skin. And that, I guess maybe work ethic, but it's not too many people who are very comfortable with shooting darker skin tones or melanated skin tones in a good way that kind of like brings it out. It can be made look aesthetically good. They can try, but I always think that if you don't actually put in effort in your downtime to learn how to do this, you probably have a harder time sometimes when you're trying to shoot. And that can cause you to stop from trying to depict or include people at different skin tone than yours in your work. So yeah, these were some of the pictures we got a chance to do, especially for this brand called Profoto. I was very grateful. They were grateful enough to give me full range on depicting beauty as I understand it. And in my head, it clicked. I'm like, this is what I want to depict. So it worked out super good.
They're beautiful. I definitely, like, I've been asked before to model for white people so that they can learn how to shoot on Black skin. And it's always just translated to, like, I appreciate the effort, but it seems to always just translate to how to photograph dark people in a light area and like contrasting, and not the like skin gradient or all the other intricacies that go into photography that even I don't understand. But that it seems very much like, okay, you've got a dark person in a dark room, and how do you make them pop, and very maybe a bit more cut and dry, or pun intended, a black and white approach to what I think is much more nuanced and complicated. But anyway, I will.
Go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
No, I'm just gonna pull up something to show you guys, almost like a little. So my eyes are crying because I have allergies and stuff. So
I thought you were just emotional about your own photos. I understand.
It's that time of year, though.
Yeah, it always happens. So my eyes just start to cry out of nowhere. So,
quick question: Did you have allergies in Rwanda?
No.
So yeah, what's going on there? It's kind of like a North American thing. No, just different plants and. I find I've often heard that allergies are more common in North America and not in the rest of the world. And anyways, okay, go on.
Yeah, I was gonna say I wanted to share with at least like a sneak peek for you guys, because it's like I get a chance to show you guys.
Ooh.
So I did a project.
Yeah.
I did a project with Canon, and it was to create. And I want to emphasize the reason I love cultures, the reason I love showcasing cultures, stuff like that. So we got a chance to, they were like, okay, depict anything you want, but then I can make it look beautiful. So that was kind of like the goal. And I remember thinking about it, I was like, okay, cool. And then this gives me the opportunity to use this moment to kind of like highlight some cultures and stuff like that. So then let me see if I can share my screen. Okay, perfect. Can you guys see my screen?
I can, and I'll use this as a moment to say, if you're listening to the audio, you should be watching on YouTube. Search Blacklandic. Also, I am Gessy Gessy on Instagram to see what we were seeing beforehand. If you choose to listen to this on Anchor, but really check out our YouTube so you can see all these beautiful shots and our beautiful faces.
YouTube is where all the juice is at, so you're missing out on this portion. But yes, so we got a chance. So I was like, I have a lot of friends who are from mostly on the other side of the continent, which is definitely not Africa. So I was like, cool, let me reach out to them. And they were very happy, very accommodating with me. So I was able to bring out their cultural attires, them using their cultural jewelry, so we can create like a beautiful story of showcasing their culture here. So we got the chance to create some of this like beautiful kind of like shots. I think this was my favorite of all of them, really, because it was a perfect moment. We had planned this shot for a long time, and it worked out exactly as we had it in mind. So shout out to the whole team, because he was perfect. And I think I remember that Canon saw it and they were like, oh, okay, that's the shot. That's the shot. So yeah, but then there is so much more. Even I think I also love this one because it gives almost like a very angelic, almost like, how would I call it? Dreamy kind of like feel, peaceful type of feel. And yeah, so showcasing all different aspects of the culture, of their attires, their fashion. And yeah, so this is what we're able to create. Yes. So, and nobody has seen this because we haven't posted them on Instagram yet. So everybody's just like, okay, we're gonna wait to post them, but you guys get to see them.
Yeah, you saw it here first. Hey.
Thank you. Thank you. Also, they are phenomenal.
Those are amazing.
Thank you very much.
Since you thanked the team, I'm curious for what I would call like the money shot. How many people did it take to orchestrate that perfect moment?
That perfect shot. We had one person on the left side here holding this, one other person on this right side, and we had me on the front here, kind of like taking the picture. And we had an assistant hold the camera, taking the picture while we were doing the framing. And I remember the fabric behind was not going the way I was thinking about it. So I gave the assistant the camera. I put in all the settings, gave it to her, and I was like, "Cool, you take the shot. I'm gonna go hold the fabric." So we started like waving it. On the other side, my brother was there, who's also a photographer. So we waved it the way we had it in our mind, and she took the shot. And that's when it happened.
So are you somewhere in behind, or you edited out, or did you?
Oh no! I cropped it. I was probably standing a little. If I had opened up this a little bit, you would have probably seen me on this side. So yeah,
that's so cool.
That's the money shot.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
I'm floored.
You guys get to see it before anybody. So thank you guys for the compliments. I appreciate it very much.
We appreciate that. That's definitely going to be in one of the plugs when we promote this, this episode. A sneak peek.
Yes.
I'm going to pull up the CBC article. Hillary, did you have some questions about that?
I did. Well, I did. I pulled up a quote that I thought was really interesting. I mean, like we've spent, I would say, not a lot of time, but a good amount of time talking about like the cultures and culture and why it's important to you. But in reading the article before speaking to you, I had noticed that you mentioned some of the film stuff and being able to tell stories. So your quote was, you come from an unrepresented community in terms of people who are always in front of the screen. And I'm Black, and all of my peers, most of the time, we're not really finding ourselves in front of the lens. I find pleasure in being able to do that and being able to film documentaries that tell their stories. I was very curious about the film aspect as well, and what these documentaries entail, who they've been about, and what types of stories that you're telling on top of all of this amazing photography.
Yeah, I think one of the things that kind of like also caught Canon's eye in terms of like putting me in the future's creator was my love for documentary filmmaking. Because I think like I mentioned, I always loved sitting down and hearing people speak. I would probably just sit there for hours and just like allow people to speak as I record. And that's something that I've always loved. So that gave me the chance to, whenever I'm sitting with some friends, just picking up a camera and just like, let's tell a little story. Let's go through your day to day as a person, or even like talk to me about things that happened to you, and like anything that's gonna be very intimate and that's gonna probably relay a specific feeling to another person or communicate them a specific message in any way. So when that clicked in my head, that's something I would always love to do. I started doing some documentaries, especially in that specific time. So whenever we're at that march, the one that you pulled up in the article, that same day, the next day, I had a lot of people come through my house. So the next day, right after this, I had a lot of people come through my house where I had set up like a background, set up a bunch of like 3 different angles on the camera, and then we just started talking. We just started talking about, the Black experience, them being, going through this. I think they might be on my page under videos.
Under
somewhere.
videos?
Yeah, under videos. The 4th tab there. If you scroll down a little bit. Yes, okay, right there. Go back up a little bit. Up. Yeah, so that's on the right side. That's Chijoke. His name is, people call him CJ, but his name is Chijoke. And again, at that time, my skills were very subpar. Please, my video skills at that time were very bad. I was still interested in getting the chance to speak to people, so he got to tell me about his life, how much he struggled. He's one of the people who's been here for the longest time that I've at least know a couple of people here. And he got to tell me about like how much he struggled, how much he always wants PI to evolve. Because if there is anybody who's seen PI evolve, it's definitely Chidoke. So I got a chance to sit with him. And at some point he was, I think, that president of Black Culture Society as well. And right now he headlines a show called WTF, that is Wisdom, Truth, and Failure. And where people get a chance to come and, share their stories and stuff like that. So I got a chance to speak with him, which makes me think I should probably do a follow-up interview where I get to chat with him. So I'm probably going to note that down somewhere. And there is another one, the one that had just like Black stories. That was just like a recap of the march. But also I got a chance to showcase that when Black Culture Society was doing like a documentary screening. So that came through very well as well. And it's a collection of people who are very known in the community, at least, in the Black community, as artists, as activists, or even just like as people in general.
Wow. So for our listeners, you can go to I am Gessy, GESSYY, and click on tap the videos tab and check out these videos and mini documentaries that have been made. This one, the Black Stories one's about 20 minutes long, so very easy to consume, shorter than even a Netflix show, you might say. And I'll speak on behalf of Clinton and myself that if ever you'd like another place to host any of this type of content, I would absolutely adore sharing this on on our platform, or even just letting us know the next time one's going to drop so that we can share these stories. Because whole point of this podcast is sharing these types of stories. And I think it's extremely important to do so on as many platforms as we can and expand to, we might be, well, Clinton's in New Brunswick and I might be from New Brunswick, but all of the East Coast provinces are trying to be represented on the Black Atlantic. So
no, it's a big pleasure. Whenever I get a chance to travel and meet some Black people who are prospering or who are going through any very kind of like marking moments in their life, I always love to document that for them, if they allow me, of course, if they are feeling comfortable to do so. So I get a chance to at least have that little nugget of moments in their life stored away whenever they need it.
Amazing.
That's really amazing. It sounds like you've had nothing but support since you arrived to PEI, doing your thing.
Yeah, at first it's like, all the support you can get always helps. Thing is, PI is like a very tough scene to kind of like maneuver, especially because the population here sometimes may not really 100% understand what you're about or trust you right away, because again, you're almost like an outsider. But then over time, I think even like to this day, I think I'm very appreciative of the people who give me support, because it's always there. Like I've never lacked any support in PI so far.
Amazing.
That's good. I'm so glad that you've been able to connect with some of the lovely PI people that we've connected with as well. Shout out to Tamara Steele and Bianca. Like I said before, they're wonderful people. And they both explain PI, I find, in different ways. And it's nice having a third person from another different place explain PI through a completely different lens. Ha, ha, ha. I got to get in as many puns as I can.
That's perfect. That's perfect.
Thank you.
That's perfect. Yeah. I think if you pull up the article, I can tell you a quick story about the shot there of
Bianca?
No, that one right there. Mm-hmm. So that shot happened. The person in the middle who's being kind of like held on their shoulder is Daniel Ikechukwu. And at that time, I remember this kind of like made me kind of like understand the importance of documenting moments and the importance of like always having my camera ready to go. And at that time, what had happened was we were at the march, and we were just like having somebody give a speech, and this one guy, of course, he was white at that time. He started heckling a little bit, kind of like started screaming and all that, kind of disrupting the whole thing that was going on. And I think at this point, everybody's emotions were very on high at that time because of everything that was unfolding. And I think Daniel was one of the people. He's known to be a very, very calm person. Very calm. I think he's probably one of the calmest people I know. And at that time, he kind of like overwhelmed him very much. And he went up to the person asking him, like, why are you even doing this, really? And as he was getting very emotional, a lot of people pulled him back. Of course, we got a chance to remove the heckler and stuff, but then he had a moment where he kind of like broke down, and a lot of people came behind him to kind of like comfort him a little bit, kind of like calm him down a little bit. And I remember in the corner of my eye, I didn't even doubt for a second. I took the picture. So I think that kind of like, if that entails any kind of like relevance in always documenting moments, this will be the one I'll pull up at some point for sure.
That is a really powerful photo. You've got the people embracing Daniel in the front and the sort of field of flowers, which can symbolize so much in terms of emotions, and then all these onlookers way off in the background. But it seems like he's kind of off to the side of a stage or the side of the main event, so it's a real like behind the scenes candid camera that I don't know, it just feels like it encapsulates, like you said, so much of the emotion, the strong, powerful, painful emotions that people were feeling at that time.
Yeah. It's one of my favorite shots for sure. And I got a chance to print it as well, because I always love printing my any images that really mean a lot. So I got a chance to print it, and it just came out beautiful.
Wow.
I'll shift gears for a
Wow.
second because I just noticed. Was it your birthday yesterday?
Yes, it was.
Happy belated birthday.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
We were messaging through like the podcast account, and then I went to go creep on my own, and I was like, oh yeah, well, happy birthday. I'm glad we could speak to you the day after your birthday.
Yeah, it's a big pleasure.
Yes, definitely happy birthday.
Thank you.
Well, you've shared. So, Hillary, do you have any other questions?
I think this was a perfect episode. We got more than I think we even intended with the sneak peeks, and I don't think we've ever had someone like share their works and then like explain it live, I think, on the show, really.
Yeah.
Like last week, Jennifer loosely did in speaking about like the number 2 battalion and some of the historical documents she sent us. But of all the people we've had, no one's ever been like, this is the composition and the shot and the thought that went behind it. And that's incredible. More than I could have asked for.
Yeah, I think it's one of the greatest parts about doing this podcast is the things that Hillary and I learn every week talking to people. And I feel like we learned so much this week from a little bit more about Rwanda, because I think you are our first guest from Rwanda. We've interviewed many guests who've come to Canada from different African countries, mostly on the West Coast, a little bit on the East, but you're our first Rwandan guest. And I feel like I know a little bit more about Rwanda from someone who lives there now, who's from there, and the stories in PEI and photography and your inspirations and the universal vibes. Yeah, that was great. As well as a little tiny bit about like the struggles, like that story about a heckler was... It definitely took me back to those days. The same thing happened in the city I'm in here in Moncton. A guy got charged by the police because he was throwing eggs at protesters and uttering death threats, and he barely got off with a slap on the wrist. But thank you so much for being on the show. Once again, people who want to find you, they can find you at I am Gessy, Gessy on Instagram. Do you have any closing thoughts or anything you really want listeners to hear or know before we wrap up today, Jesse?
No, I'd say thank you guys for having me. It's a big pleasure. Always nice to chat. I love it. If you guys have never noticed, I love talking. That's how I'm like, if I ever host like a podcast or like a radio show, I always get like people tell me, oh, you have a nice voice, you should host like a radio show. I'm like, okay, cool, sign me up, because I love talking, and these kind of like moments are things I'm going to always cherish. So thank you guys for giving me the opportunity. And I'd like to say, if anybody ever, I mean, I know I'm not the craziest, the best photographer, but if I have anything that you'd like to learn from me in any way, anybody who's listening, just feel free to DM me, feel free to hit me up. My DMs are always open. I may be a little bit late in responding, just a tiny little bit late, but I will respond eventually, and I'll get the chance to, connect a little bit. If you have any questions, if you want any behind the scenes of any shots, just let me know. It's on my IG, on my email, anywhere, really. Yeah.
So nice of you. I hope people take advantage of that. I hope someone out there, drops you a line.
I hope people take advantage of that. I think that we should consider taking advantage of that podcast voice. But I'll speak to Clinton about that. But my brain, first of all, I had that exact thought. I was like, he needs to have a podcast. And now I'm like, we have one. So I have some ideas in my head now. But also, if ever you come to Toronto, my DMs are also open if you need
I'm in Toronto
or anything, or you want to put a Canon.
I'm in Toronto this August. I'm coming to Toronto August 11th to the August 15th. So we're hosting an exhibition there, and I'm also getting the chance to meet some Canon folks. So yeah, I have some time to, get some portraits in. So if you're ever available in that time.
Right before I'm supposed to go to the Harry Styles concert. It's perfect timing. That's my only window of availability left, because I believe other people are coming to visit. I'm hosting so many people that month. August, a fruitful month. Anyway, that's awesome. Thank you so much for coming on. I'm glad that after several attempts of coordinating, you finally got to be on. I think this might be one of my, no offense to anyone, favorite episodes that we've done. I really appreciated all of the behind the scenes and all of the little inside scoops. I think that's great. And I'm so glad that Canon saw such amazing work in you, because you deserve everything that they're offering you and more.
Thank you. A big pleasure. And Clinton, if we ever get a chance to meet, you said you're in New Brunswick, right?
Yeah, but my mom is born in PEI. I've got over 300 white relatives on the island, and I haven't been there in too long. And yeah, I'll definitely hit you up next time we plan a trip to go over there.
If you're ever coming through, just stop by. Let me know. We can organize a little studio session and catch some portraits.
100%. Yeah.
Let's do it. Yeah.
I'm down with that. That sounds amazing.
Everybody, if you listen to this episode, go back and watch it on YouTube. Again, that's I Am Gessy, Gessyyy. Clinton Davis, Cropberry, find our GoFundMe, send us some cash money. Thanks for watching. That's it. I know there's no good way to ask.
Bye. We can work on that too.
We'll work on it. Hey, but the intro's good.
Even on my birthday, I just put up a post to just say, oh yeah, this is my interactive mail. If you want to express your funds. There's a joke that's been going on of like, express your funds. So that means just like, express your wealth. So people just like send you money for no reason. So
that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Why didn't I meet you 25 years ago?
So
thank you.
All these years I could have been doing that on my birthday.
That's what we do in our family chat. You didn't say hello, happy birthday. Please send your money here. But anyway. All right. Thanks for listening, everyone.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
Bye.